We are talking wide receivers and accepting your donations to St. Jude today. So please do that, everybody. And also, we're talking about if we were able to get an intern, if each of us had an intern, what would we ask the intern to do for us? Dave, what would you ask the intern to do for you?
Among a number of things, such as doing data digs and combing through press conferences, one of the things I might ask for is for them to do waiver moves for me. I give them a list. Jamie loves this. Like, he wouldn't do this if he had the chance to trust somebody to take a list of the ad drops that he wanted to make and put in the waiver claims for him. It's not that much work. It would be bad if somebody did that for me.
An hour at least.
An hour, with all the leagues we play in, of course. It saves me an hour, and the intern could just do it.
Jamie, what would you have your intern do for you?
Well, based on Dave's request, mow my lawn, clean the pool, pick up my kids.
I say chop my vegetables. That's one of the most annoying tasks for me. Heath, how about you? Oh, we lost Heath. All right, and with that,
the intern needs to
have them hold up the antenna.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have Heath come back in just a minute. And we will start our wide receiver preview part 1. If you're on YouTube, which you are because this is only being seen by the YouTube audience, please hit like on the video and please hit subscribe. And remember, we have live streams for you every Tuesday night with live mock drafts. And Heath is back. Hello, Heath. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Wide receivers. How to draft wide receivers. We'll tell you the recent trends, the best and worst values. We're going to compare ADP on different sites. If you look at Fantasy Pros average draft position compared to NFC in the last 10 days, there are some big differences like Cortland Sutton, like DJ Moore, those types of players. And we'll tell you which ones we like better, which values, not necessarily which values, but which ones we subscribe to more. We're going to talk about who should be the first wide receiver off the board. That is a question right now with the Matthew Stafford elbow injury. And we have so much to get to. Welcome to Wide Receiver Preview Part 1. Welcome, Dave.
Hi.
Welcome, Jamie.
Hello.
Welcome, Heath. How you doing? I heard you're a little out of breath this morning.
I am no longer out of breath. It's been about 2 hours since I finished my run, or hour and a half. I'm doing good now.
Was it a little bit of a struggle?
Today was a bit of a struggle. I made it just a little over 2. I think I'm exactly 2 1/3 miles. So.
Oh, geez. Wow. All right.
Wow.
I'm not going to make fun of you because it would take me a year to get up to that. So congratulations. All right. So listen, we got a lot to get to today with wide receiver. We also have a few running back notes. I want to read something I just read about the Lions running backs and of course talk about the Melvin Gordon foot injury, even though it's some new information. By the way, on Friday on YouTube, Saturday for the audio audience, we're going to have a news and notes episode to catch up on the things you may have missed while we were doing our position previews and also some preseason notes as well. Last year, 2021 was an unusual season with 2 top 5 wide receivers being drafted after pick 70. Outside the top 70, Jamar Chase and Deebo Samuel. Very, very unusual. They were the first wide receivers drafted outside the top 70 to finish in the top 5 since Josh Gordon in 2013. So that was not typical. We'll tell you what is typical, where you can expect your top 5 wide receivers to come from, your top 12, your top 24, and how it should shape your strategy. But let's start. Heath, why don't we go to you first? Give me an overall assessment of wide receiver this year.
There's a few more tiers at the top than I'm used to. There's a little more separation amongst the top 12. But then once you get past like wide receiver 16, 17, 18, wherever that breaking point is, there's about 25 guys that are kind of similar.
Okay. Dave, what's your assessment of wide receiver?
Plenty deep, lots of good talent that you can find. Even in I think you can find talent in let's call it round 8, that you would still consider putting in your starting lineup as a flex, as a third wide receiver. Guys who carry plenty of risk. Julio Jones kind of comes to mind on that, but the value is good and it's a plentiful position, and I'm continuing to see lots of good values at wide receiver all the way through the first half of the draft.
Okay, Jamie, you're up.
There's about 14 number 1 receivers and about 30 number 1 and number 2 receivers.
Okay. 14 number one receivers. So that would include Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, T. Higgins.
Yes.
How do you guys feel about that statement? There's about 14 number one receivers and about 30 guys who could be one or twos.
So 30 includes the 14 that are ones?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to my wide receiver 30. It's Rashad Bateman. I'm looking at 31, which is Lazard. 32 is Juju. This is just for me and my rankings.
Yeah, like
I think he's about right on.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say Bateman could absolutely be a number 2 wide receiver. It's harder for me to see Lazard as being a number 2.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not obviously doing it to the number, but I think it's just, we always talk in 12s, in groupings of 12s because of 12-team league. So a number 1 and a number 2. I don't feel like if I get Juju, depending on my build, and that's my second receiver, I'm upset about it. If I get Bateman as my number 2, I'm not upset about it. I prefer them to be my third, but if I go about an atypical build for me where I'm not taking 2 receivers early, if you tell me like I get great value on a couple running backs, I go a quarterback, super flex league for example, go a different route than getting receivers early. I'm perfectly fine if you tell me that's my second receiver. I'll probably double tap it and go, Juju and Bateman back to back or something like that. Bateman, Juju, as my 2 and my 3. But I really love how deep the position is.
And we're going to go through that pick by pick series that we did on yesterday's show where we focus on the running backs, and we'll talk more about the wide receivers. But I'm looking at Heath's team, which was 5th overall. He took Justin Jefferson. This was a 3-receiver PPR league. He took Justin Jefferson, then Mark Andrews, then 3 running backs, and Juju Smith-Schuster is his wide receiver too.
Well, you got to check though with Heath. Did he know what the scoring was?
Is that a thing? You don't know?
I did not know in our most recent salary cap draft because I don't have any recollection of Dave having a PPR salary cap draft. I thought it was always been a half PPR, but I missed the memo and there was an email, but my team was just incredible.
Did the email say half
Dave didn't
PPR?
mention it in the article.
It was a very good team, but we'll see how Heath feels about that with his wide receivers being Justin Jefferson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Garrett Wilson, Jahan Dotson, George Pickens. But you like rookie wide receivers?
Well, that's the thing. The other thing about this position, outside the top 30, there's probably 15 first and second year wide receivers who could absolutely just explode this year, have the ability, just needs the situation to work out right for them. Elijah Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Traylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, there's a ton of those guys.
But typically you would want them to be wide receiver 4 or 5.
Right, but if one of them's your wide receiver 3, then have 4 of them, and one of them will be your wide receiver 3 or better.
Okay. How many wide receivers should be drafted in round 1? And when within that round should they be drafted, Dave?
3. I think the minimum number is 3. You could say 4 if you want to include Stephon Diggs in there, but I don't think he's a lock to be a first-round pick in a 12-team league. Cooper Kupp's going to go anywhere between, I've seen him go first overall in a couple of leagues. My son was in one where Kupp went first overall. It was full PPR. I don't like that. I would take him later, obviously, but I think once you get to pick 4, I think Kupp's window opens. Jefferson's window opens right alongside him. Chase, I think you'd expect to go anywhere between 9, 10, 11.
Any major disagreements, guys?
Nope.
We're pretty good on that. Okay. There are currently 4, almost 5 wide receivers based on Fantasy Pros average draft position going in the first round, but Adams and Diggs are at the very, very end, so they could easily be second-round picks. Jamie, I'll give you this one. I would like to draft blank of my top blank wide receivers.
I would like to draft, ideally, 5 of my top 30.
And do you do that a lot? Feel like you're able to?
No, 4. I get 4 of my top 30.
Okay. Heath?
I mean, I have a lot of drafts where I draft 3 of my top 12. But that's because DJ Moore and Brandon Cooks are ranked quite a bit higher for me than for everyone else. So if I could take Jefferson in the first and DJ Moore in the third and Brandon Cooks in the fourth, I'm thrilled with that.
Dave, I would like to draft blank of my top blank wide receivers.
I would like to draft 1 of my top 15 wide receivers in PPR, 2 of my top 22 wide receivers in PPR, and 3 of my top 30 wide receivers in PPR.
I did a super flex draft last night with other analysts, and after going from the third pick, Mahomes and Brady, and then Kamara in round 3,
Wow, Brady.
I
round
came
2.
back 4 through 7. I think I took 5 receivers in a row. I drafted Pittman, DJ Moore, Godwin, Allen Robinson, and Alan Lazard.
Awesome.
That was a super flex.
That was super flex.
I can't believe you got all those guys and you covered both of your quarterbacks and got Kamara. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I punted tight end. Gerald Everett's my tight end. And my number 2 running back is just guys I'll cycle through. I start with Miles Sanders.
Well, look, super flex leagues are obviously a different animal. But we'll look again at that pick by pick series and see how we got our wide receivers and if we like it or not. I would say that I would ideally like to draft one of your top, I guess I'd say 6 wide receivers. I'd love to have one of those guys. That would be Kupp, Jefferson, Chase, Diggs, Lamb, and Adams. I'm a little nervous about, but he'll be in that group. But that's not going to happen for me if I have a top probably 5 pick. I don't know exactly when it's tough for me. It depends on the league and when I draft Cooper Kupp. But, I'd like to have an elite wide receiver, guys. I'm sure you would too. But if you don't get an elite wide receiver, how many elite wide receivers are there? Let me start with that. Like, what's the elite tier?
I think it's 6.
That I'm sure about, I'm going to say 4.
Opening my tiers now, double checking. This is the updated version that'll be on the site today. I'm going to agree with Heath. The answer's 4.
Jefferson, Kupp, Chase, Diggs in some order.
There's more.
For everyone.
There are more, but like Lamb and DJ Moore have to prove it. Adams and Tyreek Hill, let's see what it's like with the new QB. Like there will be a couple more, but there's 4 that I feel good about.
Okay, so follow-up question on that. If you don't get one of your 4 favorites, or maybe for the listeners, 5 favorites, whatever, if you have an early pick and you took McCaffrey or somebody in round, we took a running back round 1, do you feel more under pressure at all to maybe get a wide receiver in round 2 and round 3, or not, or that just doesn't factor in?
Not me.
Doesn't for me. I think the thing that you find in round 2, especially if you're probably pick 7 or 8, so once you get to where it's, Devontae and CeeDee Lamb are gone, like for me, I think the group of Keenan Allen, Evans, Pittman, T. Higgins, DJ Moore, you could find those guys in round 3. In some cases, not necessarily, not Allen and Evans, but you can find Pittman and Higgins and Moore in round 3 if you don't want to go into the Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, Deebo Samuel group. So
well, Deebo is he's like the 6th wide receiver off the board, or 7th.
Well, I'm talking like just the way I would approach it.
Yeah.
So so if I don't take Keenan Allen, then I'll typically wait to see which of those other 3, and the other 3 being, I'll say 4, because I think Michael Thomas is going to creep his way in there. But the 4 being Pittman, Higgins, DJ Moore, and Michael Thomas. I'll look for them in round 3 and be perfectly fine with it.
I don't think Michael Thomas is going to get there because his ADP is still much lower than where we are drafting him just since August 1st. If you want, I can change the date range. But August 1st on NFC, he's still 63rd overall. And I don't know. I'll tell you where he ranks.
He'll get into round 4. He won't get into round 3. You're right.
Okay. Yeah. He is. Sorry.
Well, and again, like I ran.
Receiver's 32.
I was going to give Adams some credit for this because I ran a bunch of Twitter polls over the last couple of days about what type of leagues most people play in. And there were just as many in half PPR as full PPR. It was almost a tie. Basically, nobody plays non-PPR anymore. Mm-hmm. But for those people who play half PPR, I'm not sure Michael Thomas will even get into round 4.
All right, we'll get into that in a little bit.
Hold on, Adam. His NFC ADP since Monday, and we're recording this on Thursday, is 27th overall.
Wow, really?
27.8. Yep.
How many drafts is that?
Gosh,
20 drafts. No, hold on. I screwed up. That's Michael Pittman.
Could have used an intern for that.
I need an intern for that. Michael Thomas is 59.6.
All right, so listen, we'll get into that.
Man, that was
They're going to
bad.
be
EITTMANCHOMAS.
What about Michael Gallup? No, so anyway, listen, I gotta read a few things here, and we'll get going a little bit on the rest of the show. But I do want to point out that there are some players that I think these three guys, Dave, Jamie, and Heath, are just going to be higher on than the rest of the industry, and then the rest of the people that you're drafting with. And Michael Pittman might fall out of that category because he is becoming closer to a second-round pick. I think he'll end up an early third-round pick. So Pittman, but people are kind of following you guys. You guys have been very high on Pittman for a while. Brandon Cooks is one that we're higher on. DJ Moore is one that we're higher on. Now, within the Dave, Jamie, Heath rankings, it's very different. But DJ Moore higher on than the industry. I think maybe Dave is kind of with the industry. And Michael Thomas would be another guy. So these are players that we like a lot. We'll tell you more about them, I assume, in Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts. The Draftathon is coming up later this month. Again, when we finalize, looks like it's August 31st. When we finalize the date, I'll let you know. But right now, there is a St. Jude link on our YouTube chat. And we're going to put the eBay link. I'm going to put it in the chat right now. It is in the episode description. You can bid on some amazing things. All of it goes to St. Jude. You can bid on a spot in the podcast league, which is already up to about $1,600. You can bid on a spot to be on the show, on the podcast. Pre-draft calls with Dave, Jamie, Heath, and experts from outside the industry. Just go look at the eBay page. I put a link in the episode description and in the YouTube chat, and do some bidding, and it is going to go to St. Jude. So please do that.
We actually have something that's timely for today, if anybody's interested. So we have 3 spots open in our mock draft that's going to be at 3 o'clock today, and you can bid on those 3 spots.
Oh yeah, awesome!
So
mock with us. Also, I want to thank everybody for nominating and voting for us on podcastawards.com. We are a finalist. We're finalists in 3 categories. Some of you listeners may actually be called upon to vote in the next round. So if you see an email from podcastawards.com, that means you can be a voter and, vote for us. But thank you for getting us to the next round in People's Choice, male hosted, and Best Sports Podcast. I do think a big thing that we talked about in the running back preview and need to do it again is the difference between 2 receiver leagues and 3 receiver leagues. Many of our mock drafts, a lot of our content, you're going to see 3 receiver leagues, but we know most of you playing on CBS are in 2 receiver leagues, and that is apparently the standard on ESPN and Yahoo. So Heath, how do things change for you at the wide receiver position in a 2 receiver league versus a 3 receiver league?
I don't draft as many wide receivers, and I don't draft wide receivers as early.
In a 2 receiver league.
In a 2 receiver league. Yeah. I would still take it. It affects the guys after the first couple of rounds more than it does the guys in the first couple of rounds. It would not affect how I'm going to draft Cooper Kupp or Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. Because those guys are still elite producers. But it would definitely affect how I would draft guys like Juju, Alan Lazard. I'm not like he would the low ceiling, high floor guys, and maybe I'm putting somebody in a wrong place here, but are far less appealing if you only have to start 2 wide receivers. I don't know that it affects the rookies in the double digit rounds that much because they still have the upside to boom. But you don't have to worry so much about those guys. Like, yeah, he can be a wide receiver 3 for me. Who cares?
We actually did a 2 receiver mock draft on YouTube last month, and around a month ago, and it didn't seem to change the ADP. It didn't seem to change too much in terms of when the wide receivers went off the board compared to our typical 3 receiver leagues. But Jamie, I'll ask you. I've noticed that most of the top 12 wide receivers at the end of the year, the guys who finished top 12. Most of them are drafted in the first 6 rounds of a 12-team league. So they're top 72 picks. So if you were to project your first 6 picks in a 2 receiver league versus a 3 receiver league, is there a difference in how many wide receivers you would expect to have through 6?
I would probably not be as interested in drafting a 4th receiver early as I would be in a 3 receiver league because I would try and get a flex receiver with a higher pick than I would a running back with a higher pick. If that makes sense.
All right. Listen, we have 2 episodes to talk about all wide receivers and all those things. So this will be a more general approach. We will talk about some players today, sleepers, breakouts, busts, like I mentioned. But if there's something that we don't get to, don't worry. We've got another hour or so on tomorrow's show. We're going to do 15 wide receivers in 5 minutes. That's a fun segment. I do want to do some running back leftovers real quick, though. Just a couple of quick notes here so people don't have to wait until the weekend to hear it in case you are drafting. And some people are drafting now. Detroit, this is according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, who went to a few training camps, and he wrote, Detroit believes wholeheartedly in a 1-2 tailback approach with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Dave, you were talking about how Dan Campbell talked about Williams working in at the goal line. So that was off the air. We were chatting. So what do you make of this? Is there a chance? Do you think we're too high on DeAndre Swift as an early second-round pick in a 12-team league?
The quote is Dan Campbell was talking about why he decided to practice short yardage goal line situations at full speed, full pads. And in the course of his answer, he said, when you really need it, you can line up and lean on somebody and hand it to 30 or one of these running backs. 30 is Jamal Williams. So his role isn't going away. It seems like he's pretty locked in as the complementary back and potentially the short yardage goal line guy for Detroit. You already know from watching Hard Knocks just what he means to the locker room. He is a ball of energy, and I think they like him as a character guy. There's no chance he's not going to be on the team this year. So he is somebody that could take away some work from DeAndre Swift. I think that's something that everybody understands. And I think the main reason why people draft DeAndre Swift isn't because he's going to score double-digit rushing touchdowns. It's because of his use in the passing game, the potential for him to catch a slew of passes. He's one of those guys that has a shot at 80 catches over the course of the season. And that's why he's a top 15 pick in full PPR. I wouldn't worry too much about Jamal Williams.
Yeah, I mean, we knew this, but it bothers me just a little bit more to hear the goal line stuff because I do, and again, we just have a disagreement on this, but I do think the target volume is very unlikely to be like what it was the first half of the season. He had 6+ targets almost every game. I don't think he had a game with more than 3 catches, or maybe he had one game with more than 3 catches in the second half.
To be fair, though, didn't they make the switch right when he got the shoulder injury?
Yeah. And actually, I mean, I have some stats on this. I won't get into it right now, but the target share for running backs was definitely lower after Anthony Lynn was removed as a play caller, but it was higher in the games that DeAndre Swift played. I think it was about a 21% target share in the second half of the season when DeAndre Swift played for running backs, which was definitely lower, but it was higher than what you saw in the games that DeAndre Swift was out.
That's 21% is like 2/3 of what Anthony Lynn would do.
Yeah, but Anthony Lynn in week 1 they had like 20 running back targets. After that, it wasn't quite. It was more normal, I guess, but still high. Okay.
You want the number of snaps that these guys played inside the 3?
Sure.
7 for Swift, 5 for Williams. That was last year. And
Williams,
yes, this time I got it right. I'm not gonna Pittman this one.
Williams played 13 games and had 5 carries inside the 5-yard line. Swift had 4 carries inside the 5-yard line. Okay, second running back note. Jamie, Melvin Gordon has a foot injury. What do we do with this vague information?
Well, the rocket chips are going off for Javonte, if this is serious, but hopefully it's not serious. I mean, look, it's one of those things. I think you want to give it a few days to see what happens, if there's anything that comes out of it. But clearly, if Melvin Gordon is going to miss any time, Javonte Williams, depending on the amount of time, will creep back into the second round. And if it's a significant injury, will be a first-round pick.
I'll tell you what's a first-round pick in the world of clothing, and that is Indochino. Top 2 pick, top 1 pick. I have bought a lot of clothes over the years, and nothing compares to the Indochino suit I own. A beautiful custom suit that fits me perfectly. I love wearing it. I love to put my Indochino suit on. You feel better. You feel a little bit more confident. You got some more swag in you when you look good. So get yourself an Indochino suit, because I know people who pay $800, $1,000 for custom suits, and they think they're so fancy, whatever. You're going to look just as good, if not better, in an Indochino suit, and for much, much lower. You can get $50 off any purchase of $399 or more, by the way, with the promo code FFT at Indochino.com, INDOCHINO.com, promo code FFT. And the prices, they start at $449 for custom suits and $89 for fitted shirts. So you go to Indochino.com, you customize every detail of your suit. You're going to enjoy the process. It's a lot of fun. You can either go to a store and get measured, or you can submit your measurements online. And it's not just suits. Like I said, they have great shirts. They have great fall wear. You check out the entire catalog and just design your perfect suit. You're gonna absolutely love it, and you're gonna want to wear it, and you're just gonna look better in your Indochino suit than any other suit you own. So get $50 off any purchase of $3.99 or more. Use the promo code FFT at Indochino.com. That's INDOCHINO.com. Promo code FFT. Let's do 15 wide receivers.
I got something interesting real quick.
Yeah.
Not to derail you, but Nate Taylor, who covers the Chiefs for The Athletic, suggests that Ronald Jones could be cut.
Wow.
I've heard
because
that.
Checo and Jerick McKinnon have looked better than him.
And remember, not too long ago, there was a report that Ronald Jones was a serious contender to be the starting running back.
Yeah, he says that Ronald Jones,
was before
this is him on a podcast. He said Ronald Jones needs to have a strong preseason. Otherwise, it could be cut or traded.
If he's cut, they save $750,000. If he stays on the team, it's $1.5 million. So inconsequential in terms of salary. So it comes down to his talent, whether or not he can hang.
And I think this is back to your point, Heath. It's a very, very good situation for potentially Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Clyde's probably going to be one of my Saturday risers this week. Yeah.
15 wide receivers in 5 minutes. Here we go. Dave, Devontae Adams.
New team, same stud, has chemistry with the quarterback. Fully expect him to be a high volume wideout again. Top 5 fantasy receiver.
It's Stephon Diggs, Jamie.
165 targets on average in 2 years with Josh Allen. Will have his yardage up, his touchdowns hopefully the same, and is one of the top 4 wide receivers in fantasy.
And you all have Diggs ahead of Adams. Deebo Samuel, Heath.
Man, if he could do what he did last year, then he should be an early first-round pick, but we don't expect him to do what he did last year. It's how much they let him run and how much he regresses from the efficiency will determine whether he's worth a round 2 pick.
CeeDee Lamb, Dave.
Should be the top target getter by a mile in Dallas. Was outstanding last year when he was working out wide. That was when Michael Gallup was hurt. We don't know when Gallup will come back. I imagine we'll see Lamb lining up all over the place and getting force-fed targets from Dak Prescott. Top 8 fantasy wide receiver. Yes.
Heath, make the case against Lamb real quick.
The Cowboys, I mean, I don't disagree with too much of what Dave said, but the Cowboys and Dak Prescott have always distributed their targets pretty evenly. It would be highly unusual for someone to earn more than 24% of the targets in that offense. And if he doesn't, he's not going to justify his ADP.
Is 23% good? Is there a mark? Is there a number that's
23% is plenty? Well, it depends on how many passes your team throws and a lot of a variety of factors. But 23% does not generally say you're going to be a pick in the first 2 rounds. No.
I think he goes over that.
Okay.
Looking at what this team looks like right now.
Right. I think they have to change it up.
How many touchdowns for CeeDee Lamb
In his career?
11.
this year?
He's never scored more than 6, right?
I think that's true. And I'll tell you that Dak Prescott has never had a wide receiver score more than 8 touchdowns.
I have him at 8.
Turn that 6 upside down. He scores 9.
Okay. Let's go to Tyreek Hill, and I don't remember who's up. Jamie, I think you're up. Tyreek Hill.
Quarterback downgrade. I want to say system downgrade, but I don't know if that's necessarily fully true. But I'll say slight downgrade in system. Sharing the field with another receiver who just broke the rookie record in receptions. And so downgrade for Tyreek Hill this year, but still a borderline number 1 fantasy receiver.
Is he a round 2 or round 3 pick right at the top?
I would take him in round 3, but I have no problem if you take him late round 2.
Are you sure he's got a quarterback downgrade? Keenan Allen. Let's go to Keenan Allen. Heath, Keenan Allen.
Has been Mr. Receptions. Much more valuable in full PPR than he is in half PPR. A slight concern that Mike Williams is the true wide receiver 1 on this team this year.
Keenan Allen has been a top 13 wide receiver per game, 5 straight seasons, top 8 in 3 of those 5 in full PPR. In half PPR, he's been top 17 5 straight season. He's been 4, 15, 12, 11, and 17 in half PPR. That's per game. All right, next up we have A.J. Brown. Dave, interesting player, A.J. Brown.
Great when he's healthy. We saw it last year, 16.8 PPR points per game. That was with Derrick Henry on the field, so that was when the Titans were running the ball a lot. We think that Philadelphia will run the ball a lot, and he can still be very productive. He's been connecting with Jalen Hurts. The reports have become positive this week. It looks like Jalen Hurts is starting to find his groove. That's a great thing. He's slowly moved up my rankings, and Brown has been a top 12 receiver for pretty much since he's been in Philadelphia. Pretty much since, even before then.
Round 3?
He's a round 3 pick for me.
T. Higgins and Michael Pittman. Jamie, who do you like better?
Oh, Pittman's my guy. I think we're going to see 160 targets from him this year. Could be the target leader in the NFL. And building off a strong sophomore campaign, quarterback upgrade, lack of competition for targets. I think Michael Pittman's going to be one of the third-year breakouts we talk about for years to come.
And Higgins might be as well.
Higgins not far behind, but I think there's a little separation there.
4 more picks. I'm not going to put DJ Moore in here. I know you guys like DJ Moore the best in this group. I think you do anyway, all of you.
No, Pittman for me.
No, I'm sorry. Of these next 5, basically. DJ Moore is one of them. The other 4 are Jalen Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, and DK Metcalf. Waddle, Deontay, McLaurin, Metcalf. Yeah. DJ Moore is Moore first in that group?
Yes.
Moore is like a round and a half ahead of everybody in that group and 4 rounds ahead of Metcalf.
And how about Waddle, Deontay Johnson, McLaurin, and Metcalf? Everybody, who's your favorite there?
McLaurin.
McLaurin.
I have Deontay, McLaurin, and Waddle all basically tied. I currently have Deontay at the top.
Right. That was 15 wide receivers in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, guys. I think we can do our pick-by-pick series now. So, no, I'm not feeling that. I think we should talk a little more strategy first.
Doesn't that bring in strategy?
Yeah, this is the perfect time to do it.
All right, so let me ask you the questions first, and then we'll see how it's reflected in your pick-by-pick.
I do love these questions.
What is your overall wide receiver strategy? I know you have one. Heath, you can go first. Overall wide receiver strategy.
I like to draft Justin Jefferson in round 1 and DJ Moore in round 3 and Brandon Cooks in round 4, and then wait and stockpile rookie wide receivers my bench. That's a strategy, man.
It is. Think of it like this, though. Average Joe fantasy player sees you on the street, recognizes you, and says, I have my
running. Season running.
Yeah, sees any of you running or walking on the street. I have my draft tonight. What do I do at wide receiver?
Well, I'm like,
that's creepy.
He just ran away, Heath. Now you're gonna have to email him.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do that. No, that's what I tell him.
Okay, so Jefferson in round 1, Moore in round 3, Cooks in round 4, rookie wide receivers after that. Jamie, what would you tell this stranger who just is terrified of panting Heath?
So he runs away from Heath, and then I see him down the street?
Yes.
I would say try to get one running back early and then go heavy at wide receiver because you're going to love the running back value of a lot of high upside guys starting in that round 6-7 range, right where kind of the dead zone ends. And the receivers that you'll get early will make the difference on your fantasy roster.
So I'm sorry, you said repeat. I might have gotten running back.
I would take one running back early.
Okay.
Then go heavy at receiver.
Gotcha.
And then circle back to running back later. Do not spend a lot of early picks on running backs.
Okay, Dave, this stranger didn't really hear what Jamie said because he was just too shocked from the Heath experience. So now you need to clarify. What is your wide receiver strategy?
I like to pivot to wide receivers whenever there's a running back that I don't love available on the board. And you might think that doesn't happen until round 3 or round 4. Sometimes that does, depending on who I'm drafting with. But in late round 1, there are some running backs that I get a little bit nitpicky on, and I pivot to the wide receivers that are there. I don't think it's a mistake to start your draft with 2 pass catchers or 2 wide receivers. There's a difference because Kelsey's in there with your late first round pick and early second round pick. And I also don't mind going 0 RB this year if you're so inclined to do it, because there are enough running backs that you can find later on that can at least get you off to a decent start to begin the season. But there are a decent amount of wide receivers that I think you can count on to not only get you off to a decent start the season, but potentially help push you into the playoffs all year long. Those receivers are available in the mid rounds. A couple of them might even be available in the late rounds. That's why the position's deep. That's why I don't prioritize them really until there's running backs that I'm just not in love with on the board.
I want to see you go 0 RB in the league we're playing out.
Oh, he did in the pick by pick. Well, he didn't go 0 RB.
No,
that's not 0 RB because I took 2 RBs in rounds 3 and 4.
You took yes, but he did start his team with Diggs and Kelsey. It was not 0 RB, but he started his team with Diggs and Kelsey, so we'll give him credit there. But Davis,
what am I supposed to do when there are players who I like a lot that are available in rounds 3 and 4 that play running back?
This reminds me of one of my
No, but
favorite
you said you don't mind doing it. I just want to see you do it.
It's one of my favorite conversations that I ever had when I was a fantasy baseball writer, and we were trying to convince Scott White that mock drafts were for trying out different strategies, and just go against your rankings on one of these mock drafts and just try out this strategy or this strategy. And Scott couldn't get past the idea of drafting the best possible team he could in every mock draft.
Doing it in a mock draft is easy. I'll happily do it
today.
I think we have one today. Where's my pick today? Don't tell me
No,
I'm at one.
Today is non-PPR.
So don't do it today.
Don't do it today. By the way, do you change your wide receiver strategy in half or full PPR? Obviously, from non-PPR, yes, but is there a difference in your strategy, half PPR versus full PPR?
The receivers that we know as reception guys, the ones that we're counting on for high volume, get downgraded. But only those receivers. The elite receivers, no, I'm still taking Kupp and Jefferson and Chase early. But the ones that are going to score a third of their fantasy points or more, maybe even 40% of their fantasy points just on receptions, you got to downgrade them because they're not as valuable.
I also upgrade like Debo, Mike Williams, A.J. Brown, the guys who are really high efficiency but lower catch guys.
What about just how many wide receivers you want or who you're going to start at flex? I wouldn't say definitely, but ideally I'm starting a wide receiver at flex in a full PPR league, but in a half PPR league, do you guys have a preference?
Then I think you kind of just play the board.
Okay.
Usually my flex is for my best available player after I've got my starters picked out. I don't really try. In full PPR, it makes sense to put a wide receiver there because they catch the ball so much. But if I have a great running back, it's better than the other receivers on my team. What am I supposed to do? I'm really going to, that running back?
I almost always draft my flex before the rest of my lineup's been filled out, one way or the other.
I'll give you an example.
Oh, that's normal. I don't think that's bad.
Doing a draft right now, and you start 3 receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 flex, and it's full PPR. But I could not pass up A.J. Dillon as a flex. So yeah, he just was the best. I think I had my 5. I had 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. Now it's time to draft flexes. And even though I'd like wide receivers in that flex spot, A.J. Dillon was just the best player on the board. And I know he's not going to catch a lot of passes, but he was better than the wide receivers to me. So, you don't pass up value. Looking at the top 36 finishers in full PPR leagues over the last 3 seasons, here's how many of them have been wide receivers. 19, 24, and 22 over the last 3 years. Just the top non-quarterbacks. The top non-quarterbacks out of the top 36, it is wide receivers crush running backs in full PPR. In half PPR, wide receivers have had an edge, a smaller edge, but an edge over running backs. I was surprised by that, actually, in the top 36 over the last 3 years. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, sleepers, breakouts, busts, pick by pick, hopefully some key stats that I think will help you draft. But we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Let's fill in the blank. Jamie, you can start. We'll go Jamie, Heath, Dave. My favorite sleeper wide receiver is blank.
I'll say Sky Moore.
Okay, Sky Moore for Jamie. He's a late round pick, going probably after pick 120. Heath, your favorite sleeper?
Nico Collins. Think he could be a good flex, even if Brandon Cook stays healthy. And if something happens to Cook, then Nico Collins could be a starter for you.
I'm more Nico Collins. And Dave?
My sleeper is Isaiah McKenzie. I'm buying into the hype a little bit that I've heard out of Bill's training camp. We're talking about a sleeker, faster version of Cole Beasley in the slot. Beasley had over 80 catches last year. Half the people in your league don't even know who Isaiah McKenzie is.
And breakouts. Let's go Heath, Dave, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be DJ Moore, right? I've made the same case 17 times this summer, but if you haven't been listening, he's shown us the elite ability to get targets. He's shown us the elite ability to produce yardage on targets. He's not shown us an elite ability to score total touchdowns, but he has scored more than 25% of the Panthers' touchdowns over the past 3 years, basically the same rate as Stephon Diggs. They've just never had more than 17. Baker Mayfield is a pretty good touchdown guy.
DJ Moore for Heath, for Dave.
I hope that happens, man, because DJ Moore deserves to have a monster year. I think Michael Pittman's going to have a monster year because we've seen it in the past from Matt Ryan. He's definitely helped wide receivers finish as top 10 guys. Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones are those guys in Atlanta. And is Pittman on the same level as them? Probably not, but he's going to get the opportunity to do so. And this is a player who I think you can draft still. Clearly, you can still draft him in round 3. He'll give you a round 2 return. Jamie's been on him a little bit longer than I have, but I think he's one of those guys. High volume, lots of touchdown potential. Wouldn't surprise me if he finished the year with 10 touchdowns.
Okay. You guys
even with Matt Ryan as his quarterback.
Pittman or that would be unusual for Matt Ryan, wide receiver. Pittman or AJ Brown?
I have AJ Brown ahead of Pittman, I believe.
Pittman for me.
Heath, Pittman or Brown?
Pittman.
I'm taking it back. I have Pittman over Brown. I'm sorry.
Oh, Pittman across the board.
2 spots behind in my PPR rankings.
Jamie, DJ Moore, and Michael Pittman are taken. So who's left for you as a breakout?
Yeah, a guy that's not going as high, and understandably so. But Rashad Bateman, I think, is somewhat of an obvious one, but a later round, not a later round pick, but later than these guys. Like I said, someone I would look for in round 5, stepping into the number 1 role for the Ravens. Big opportunity. He's not going to get 140 targets like Marquise Brown got last year, but I think if you're watching on YouTube, our projections I think are somewhat accurate. 114 targets, between 110, 120 targets I think is fair. 2 years ago when Lamar Jackson was healthy, Marquise Brown had 100 targets. I think Bateman will do better than that because of the receiving core that he has. James Prochet is banged up. Devin Duvernay has been banged up. So you're going to see Mark Andrews lead the team in targets, Bateman be second, and have an opportunity to be a borderline number 2 receiver for the majority of the year.
Can I give one more?
Yeah.
I think Courtland Sutton has a career year. Huge opportunity, upgraded quarterback. 2019, when he was the number 1 guy in Denver, 124 targets, 72 catches, 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. I think he can beat that. And I think he fits the profile of the Cooper Kupp type of receiver that you draft in that round 3 through 5 range and finishes as a top 10 guy.
He's my favorite breakout.
I'm sorry. Did I just steal that from you?
No, I wasn't going to say it. So I'm glad you did because, I'm just doing your sleepers, breakouts, and busts. But I liked him even before the Tim Patrick injury. Now I love Courtland Sutton. He's going 40th overall in the last 10 days on NFC. And I think he's a 3rd round pick. I was just reading an article about how he's the guy that Russell Wilson looks to, it was on ESPN, when he's in trouble. When the play breaks down, he's going to Courtland Sutton. So yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with Courtland Sutton. So I'm glad you're on I'm glad you're on that team, Dave. Nice to hear the reassurance.
I struggle with Sutton and Mike Williams, not as breakouts because I don't think Mike Williams is breaking out again. Right. I do think Sutton's a good breakout call. But man, those 2 guys are just so interesting. Like when to draft them, how good can they be? Because Heath's sentiment I don't think is far off. That based on the touchdown potential, Mike Williams could be the better fantasy receiver than Keenan Allen. But Sutton, especially with Patrick out of the way, could just be a monster with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson.
And I struggle with Sutton versus Michael Pittman, which I know you guys don't. But I don't know who's a better player. It doesn't really matter. What I worry about with Pittman is just he's going to be on a low pass volume offense. They should throw the ball more, but they had the 2nd lowest pass rate. The Colts had the 2nd lowest pass rate in the red zone last year. Only the Eagles threw the ball less frequently as a percentage in the red zone. And that's Jonathan Taylor territory. So
yeah,
I do worry about that a little bit with Pittman. And I think Sutton probably has more big playability than Michael Pittman. And that's why I think he's got more touchdown potential than a lot of receivers that are going to go ahead of him. So I'm probably gaga. I wouldn't say I'm too high on Sutton. I'm probably the highest. But
if you're debating him versus Pittman, then you're the highest.
Yeah.
But they to me,
case for Pittman.
Athletically, they profile the same. I don't think either one of them is going to run away from defensive backs once a week. The red zone stuff kind of makes me think twice about 10 touchdowns for Pittman.
Yeah,
sure.
but look, they have a new quarterback, so things could change. But
Right.
that is what
It should be a more efficient passing game than what they had last year. And I think they started to distrust Wentz last year.
Yeah.
And then that could play into it. I don't think they have any distrust issues with Matt Ryan.
All right, let's do busts here. Let's go Dave, Jamie, Heath. Who will be a bust?
Deontay Johnson's got a new quarterback. You might think that he's as good as his last quarterback, but I'm not sure if that's going to be the case because the brain is different inside that quarterback. It's also going to be a different offense in Pittsburgh. I think they're going to try and spread the ball around a little bit more. I think they like both of their rookies, both George Pickens and Calvin Austin, but I think Pickens is the one who's going to play a lot. There's starting to be some buzz over Freiermuth over the last week. Adam, you just talked about it. And I think they want to run the football even more than they did last year, and they didn't run it that much last year. I'm worried about the volume for Deontay Johnson sabotaging his numbers because he wasn't very efficient even with the high target volume last year.
When would you take Deontay Johnson in a dream scenario if he fell to you?
6.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, I'm really bearish on him.
Okay. Jamie, bust.
Devontae Adams, mostly based on cost. I still think he'll be great, but he's been great a couple times since 2017 and still been a top 10 fantasy receiver, just not a number 1 or number 2 fantasy receiver. This is the most talent that he shared the field with from a receiving standpoint. He's dwarfed the number 2 guy in terms of targets in Green Bay, with Aaron Jones for the majority of that stretch, Jimmy Graham once during that stretch of the last 5 seasons. And it's not going to be the same thing from a target perspective. So I don't think he's going to be the 155 targets that you see here. I think he'll be closer to 140, maybe less. Still be very efficient, still be very good. And again, twice over that span, he's been a top 10 fantasy receiver with averaging under 20 PPR points per game. So again, I would still take him in round 2. But as we know, based on his ADP, he's going in round 1 as a top 4 receiver. We have him projected on our site from Sportsline as a top 3 receiver. So it's just a matter of cost for me. So not a round 1 pick, not even a top 15 overall pick. I would take him in the middle of round 2, which he never gets there.
Okay. Heath, who's a bust this year?
Amari Cooper. I was using Fantasy Pros ADP when I said it first, and he was wide receiver 22 at pick 57. So I wanted to go check over on NFC over the last 11 days and make sure that he hadn't just plummeted. He's still at pick 67, 6th round pick. I wouldn't take him until the end of round 8. I don't think there's even much upside there. I think it's more likely, barring something really shocking, I think it's more likely Amari Cooper is a waiver wire wide receiver than a top 20 wide receiver with Jacoby Brissett.
Wow.
In 2 seasons where Brissett's been a main quarterback, his best receiver had 109 targets, 57 catches, 966 yards, and 4 touchdowns. It was T.Y. Hilton in 2017. No other receiver in the history of playing with Jacoby Brissett had even 700 yards receiving in a season.
I'm just trying to find what he did with Dallas.
Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's a lot better than Jacoby Brissett.
Andy Dalton sucks, bro. Andy Dalton's been really bad.
Have you seen Jacoby Brissett play the game of football?
No, Andy Dalton is
someone
not
who's
good
cheered for a team with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Don't tell me Andy Dalton sucks.
And we're waiting for Daniel Jones, Mac Jones tonight. Should be a lot of fun. But
no, Mac Jones
isn't playing.
I thought they said he
still doesn't know the new offense.
Andy Dalton has not been a good quarterback for a while. I don't buy that. But Cooper was pretty good. He wasn't waiver wire fodder.
He's so much better than Jacoby Brissett.
He used to be. I don't know if he still is. I don't think he still is. But.
So Jacoby Brissett hasn't gotten any worse, but just Andy Dalton has?
Worse. Yeah. Well, because Andy Dalton once was good. Jacoby Brissett never was good. No, Jacoby Brissett is fantasy poison. I fully support that theory. All right. So
you say that to his face.
I would not say that. I'll get my intern to do that.
You wouldn't even say Andy Dalton sucks to his face.
You're right, and I wouldn't say it again. It was just
I don't think you would tell anybody that they sucked to their face, Adam.
He has definitely told me that I suck in the past.
To your face?
You said he sucks?
I said Donkey Kong sucks. Sky Moore, Nico Collins.
To Donkey Kong's face.
You know something, you suck. Here, anyway, so recap. Sleepers, Sky Moore, Nico Collins, Isaiah McKenzie. Breakouts, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Rashad Bateman. Ooh, sorry. I totally said those wrong. That would be DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, and Rashad Bateman. And busts are Deontay Johnson, Devontae Adams based on call. All of this is related to ADP.
Speaking of your crazy sounds and craziness, so we had a phone call yesterday about the Draftathon and what it would take for Adam to shave his chest on the show. So Heath, what dollar amount do you think we should put it at that Adam has to shave his chest to raise? And it's got to be significant because it's a pretty big ask.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think Adam would set the number too high because he wants to help the kids. $500.
Is infinity a number? Because it will not happen. There is no
no, it can happen.
Now,
it can happen.
Hold on, as I'm sure if Heath, when he leans back, you can see he's also seemingly has a pretty hairy chest there. What would it take for you, Heath?
Just to shave my chest?
Yeah.
It's going to grow back. It's not like it hurt. We're not asking you to wax it or anything. It's not going to hurt.
I don't want to be topless on the air.
You're just going to shave.
I'll do it off the air.
I do it for $500.
Okay, because I said I wouldn't do it for $10,000.
You really wouldn't do it? I was about to say you wouldn't do it for $10,000.
But I also already sent Adam a shirtless picture of myself for the promotion of this whole thing. So
wait. Also, as you can see from the little bit of your arm that's sticking out there, what about shaving your arms as well?
I'd shave my arms for $10,000. I don't really want. I'm sorry to say this word on the air. I don't want people to see my nipples. I just very private. For me.
What if we cover them up?
No one's going to take any joy from seeing your nipples. No one's going to be looking directly at them.
Okay, hold on. Tassels on, a nice big D right here in the middle of your chest. How much?
Well, I'm supposed to shave a J for St. Jude.
Make it a J. I don't care
that
what
much
letter of the
there?
alphabet.
$50,000, Dave, and I'll do it. All right, let's.
Every listener.
I think what we have to have
$5.
happen
I think
Nando comes to your house and shaves your chest on the air.
No electric razors though. Like we need shaving cream and the straight edge.
Well, I'm going to cut myself. I don't want to do that.
No, Nando's going to do it for you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Then $5. We're in. Okay, so let's talk about our pick by pick series here. We're going to conclude our show today with this. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you some fun stats about wide receiver, including why offense matters for a top 12 wide receiver. Only, I'll just tease you, only 15% of wide receivers who have finished top 12 over the last 6 seasons were on offenses that rank 20th or worse in scoring. At what point in the draft do we run out of top 12 options? There is a particular range in the draft where almost every season we get a top 5 wide receiver, and that range is 39 through 50. So things like that. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. But right now, let's look at our pick by pick series. And this was for a 3-receiver league. And I think Shafee T, our new producer, Thomas Schaefer, can bring that up for the YouTube audience. If you need the link, Shafee T, let me know. I'll send you the pick by pick link. But we'll take a look at our teams. Jamie, you had the first pick. And you went with Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb, and then you drafted 4 straight wide receivers, and you can start all of them. This is 3 receivers and a flex. Maybe in a 2-receiver league, you wouldn't have taken that 4th receiver. You tell me, but talk to me about this build and if you liked it.
Yeah, I do. Again, typically I wouldn't take Nick Chubb in round 2 if there was if he wasn't such a good value at that point. And this was, right after the Deshaun Watson situation was looking like 6 games. So a little bit more confidence in Nick Chubb then. But to still get the other receivers that I got, which were Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, Michael Thomas, and Treylon Burks. Again, you want to say Michael Thomas is going to be there, that's fine. But, pick another receiver that's close to him. I love that. I absolutely love it, And so more likely than not, it would end up being, instead of Chubb, it would be 2 receivers there. And then where Burks would probably be another running back, where I would start to look at that position. But, anytime I get a chance to get 3 guys like Pittman, McLaurin, and Thomas, I'll take that all day long.
Okay. So 2 running backs, 3 receivers, and then that's that 4th receiver, which is a possibility in a 3-receiver, which he might not do in a 2-receiver league, basically.
And then the guys that took at the end also, KJ Osborne and Josh Palmer.
Yes, I know you like them. They have big opportunities if there's an injury to have a true breakout in Los Angeles and Minnesota. I had the 2nd pick. I took McCaffrey, and then I took Evans and Deebo Samuel. And then I took J.K. Dobbins. So right there, I have 2 running backs, 2 receivers for my first 4 picks, McCaffrey and Dobbins, Evans and Deebo Samuel. I love that start. Chris Godwin in round 5, Dalton Schultz in round 6, Elijah Moore in round 7. So my wide receivers were Evans in round 2, Debo in round 3, which was a steal. Not going to get there in most drafts. Elijah Moore in round 7 and Chris Godwin in round 5 and Elijah Moore in round 7. So I like it, guys, but do you think, because Godwin, if he's healthy, could be great value in round 5 and you can get him in round 5, but is it okay to pair Evans and Godwin?
We don't know the extent of Russell Gage's injury yet. So, I mean, if he's hurt after getting injured in practice on Tuesday, and Julio, as we've seen the last 2 seasons, not exactly the Hall of Famer that he was, then yeah, I think you're going to get a ton of target opportunities for those 2 guys, especially with Gronk gone. So it's not the worst wide receiver pairing given what the volume is and will be in this offense.
I believe they played 14 games together. In half of them, both of them had at least 14 PPR points.
Yeah.
That was last year.
Maybe that 14.
With Antonio Brown hanging around.
Right.
With Rob Gronkowski hanging around. Now, Brown wasn't around for all those games because at one point in the season he was hurt, and at one point in the season he lost his mind and quit. Mm-hmm. But obviously I think there's definitely enough room for both of them to do well week to week. And want to know how many weeks they both stunk?
Yeah.
3.
And by one of those weeks, Dave, I think is probably the New Orleans game where they left.
Of course,
they both left with an injury. So really, twice they both stunk when they were.
I think that combo is okay,
especially because it's not Godwin in round 3. I mean, if there were no injury, Godwin's probably a round 3 pick. It's Godwin in round 5, and that's where he's going right now. I won't go through all 12 picks here, but let's see. Heath, why don't you pick one of your 2 teams, and Dave, you can pick one of your 2 teams, and talk about the wide receiver builds.
Yeah, I was looking at the first team and thinking, well, now I'd probably take DJ Moore over David Montgomery. So
I appreciate that you didn't.
I don't know what was going on. Well, I think I may have had Montgomery as a 2nd-round pick then.
It wasn't that you had Moore just ranked behind him, and now you've revised it and put Moore ahead of him.
Right, but
or
still,
maybe it's the same thing.
I think it's instructive that if you start with Justin Jefferson and Juju as your top 2 wide receivers, those are exactly the type of guys that I want to go get in Garrett Wilson, Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, even Velus Jones. Those, I believe those younger wide receivers in the later rounds are the guys that have the upside to really pay off. So that's how you want to do it if you're thin at wide receiver. I guess the other team was a little bit thin at wide receiver as well, with Lockett and Ayuk as my number 3.
Oh yeah, sorry. So I know for people watching, they know, but they know what you're talking about. For people who are listening, Heath had the 5th pick, and I already referenced this team, but he took Justin Jefferson in round 1, and then he went 4 non-wide receivers. He went Andrews, Montgomery, Akers, Antonio Gibson. He just said if he were going to do it over again, he might take DJ Moore over David Montgomery. But in this case, this was a hero wide receiver build. Round 6, he took Juju Smith-Schuster as his wide receiver 2 to go with Jefferson in round 1. And then Garrett Wilson, Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, Velus Jones, Sterling Shepard. So
that team is so much better with DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Not even close.
And then you take one of those other receiver picks they took later and you turn that into a running back because you've got DJ Moore earlier.
Yeah. All right. And then Dave, pick one of your teams that you want to talk about.
From the 6th spot, I got Derrick Henry in round 1. I'm not going to pass him up. I think he's going to be great this year. Put yourself in my shoes in round 2. Leonard Fournette's on the board. Saquon Barkley's on the board. Here are the receivers that were left. Mike Evans, Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, Michael Pittman, A.J. Brown, T. Higgins. What do? I figure that because there were so few running backs, and I have Fournette ranked ahead of them anyway, and so many wide receivers, I can just wait till round 3 and take the best of what's left at wide receiver. And so that's why I took Fournette in round 2. And it worked out. I got T. Higgins in round 3. I like the execution of what I did. I just don't like the names. I passed on DJ Moore. I wish I had taken DJ Moore. Now, as we sit here, 2 weeks later from when we did this, I wish I had DJ Moore in round 3. And the same thing in round 4. I took Marquise Brown. I took him ahead of Godwin, Terry McLaurin, and Michael Thomas. I probably would have taken Michael Thomas there. So if my team had Derrick Henry, Leonard Fournette, DJ Moore, Michael Thomas, I'm dancing. That's an awesome start.
Yep.
I don't even know if I can get that. I might be able to get that drafting with you guys moving forward. And then Justin Herbert in round 5, Drake London in round 6. So by the end of round 6, hey, look at this, Heath. I had more wide receivers than running backs on my team.
Way to go. And those wide receivers were Higgins, Marquise Brown, but if you're going to do it again, that would be DJ Moore, Michael Thomas.
And then I don't even know if I would take Drake London in round 6. I might go with who else was available?
Lazard.
Maybe Lazard went ahead of him in round 6.
That was my pick. Yeah.
Right. So I took London at the time. I remember when I took London, I was hoping to get Treylon Burks to fall back to me in round 7. Maybe this time around, would I take Burks? I think I'd probably risk it with Burks again. I don't know. I would have found a different receiver than London, and if not, London's really not that bad in full PPR.
How do you guys feel about? Sorry to do my second team here, but my second.
I would have taken Dalton Schultz. Sorry, Adam.
My second team was the only one in this 12-team draft that did not draft a wide receiver with any of my first 3 picks. So the only one that went at least 3 rounds without a wide receiver. So tell me how you think this one turned out. Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, Kyle Pitts, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf, Alan Lazard, Russell Wilson as well. I also have Julio Jones and Christian Watson. I wouldn't take Watson there now. He's still recovering from a knee injury, hasn't even practiced yet. I also have Tony Pollard. But the crux of the
team... You might have taken Brandon Ayuk then. What round was it? Round 10? No, he was taken in front of you. My bad.
Sorry. The core of the team, right, is Russell Wilson at quarterback, Kyle Pitts at tight end, Mixon and Swift at running back, weak at wide receiver compared to the other teams, Sutton, Metcalf, Lazard, Julio Jones. How do you feel about that team?
You're going to have bad wide receivers, but if Mixon, Swift, and Pitts all hit their upside, you won't care.
I think if Metcalf or Julio hit their upside, you'll be happy.
Like, who could you have taken instead of Metcalf?
Darnell Mooney. No, he just
Gabriel Davis. You could have had Judy.
I wouldn't have taken
they're all the same. They're all kind of the same. So yeah, I mean Metcalf, if he's anything close to being himself with the bad quarterback situation, then and Sutton breaks out, then yeah, you're fine.
The way I said it is that I've said this like 6 times this week, but I like this team in a 2-receiver league a lot. I don't like it so much in a 3-receiver league. I wish I had taken. I cannot see myself going 3 rounds in a 3-receiver league without a wide receiver. I'm probably going to have 2 in my first 4 picks. And it was helpful to do this pick by pick and draft 2 different squads because that really put that in perspective for me. But I'm less tied to strategies in a 2-receiver league. 3-receiver league really makes me prioritize the position. And that's the umpteenth time I'd said that, but I did want to hammer that home. Hopefully that helps you on draft day. Tomorrow's show is going to help you on draft day as well. Remember, here's our programming for the rest of the week. We have wide receiver preview part 2. We'll go through ADP and just tell you who we like and don't like. Like we haven't really talked about Alan Lazard that much. We take him well ahead of his ADP. Even Heath, I think, does, even though Heath's not so high on him.
I don't think I've ever drafted him.
Yeah, but you would in if you were just going by ADP, but we take him so early. What else? We haven't talked about Marquise Brown. We haven't talked so many guys. Deebo Samuel. We didn't really talk about him, but he could have fit the bust list because I think you guys probably like Deebo in round 3, right? But he's going like 16th overall. So we have a lot to discuss. That'll be tomorrow. Dan Schneier and I are going to record a mailbag /news/fantasy cops episode that's going to publish on Saturday. YouTube, you can see it on Friday. And that's it for tonight, or for today. It's almost tonight. Talk to you at noon Eastern on CBS Sports HQ with Fantasy Football Today. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. Have a good one.